What if I tell you that this $60 vintage manual focus lens can focus much faster than this $500 state-of-the-art autofocus lens? And no, this lens does not have magical powers. It did not come from Harry Potter. It uses a trick called zone focusing, which makes it lightning fast. In fact, zone focusing is so fast that it is used for street photography and even for sports photography. So in this video, we will talk about zone focusing, what it is, how it works for different lenses and focal length. I will also tell you about the gear and situations in which you can use this trick. And lastly, we will talk about the limitations because of course, it's not a bed of roses. So if you like this video in the end, please don't forget to drop a like and also please consider subscribing to the channel if you are new here. So let's continue. Now, when we talk about capturing fast moving subjects, we almost never consider manual lenses for the job, let alone vintage manual lenses. Because let's face it, there's not enough time. Till the time you set the focus ring and get focus, the subject moves on. But zone focusing changes everything. The zone focus basically makes your camera a point and shoot camera. But first, let's see how it works. Zone focusing is a way of setting your camera so that everything within a certain distance range will be in focus without you needing to keep adjusting focus for every shot. Here's how it works. Every lens has something called a depth of field. This is the area in front of and behind your subject that looks sharp. A wide aperture like f2 will give you a very thin depth of field. Maybe just a few inches are sharp. But if you stop down to f8 or f11 or maybe f16 even, that sharp zone gets deeper, sometimes stretching several feet in front of you. On many lenses, especially older manual ones, you will notice markings around the focus ring. These markings show you the near point and far point of your depth of field for each aperture. In zone focusing, we use those markings to actually set the depth of field. By lining up the aperture with the distance scale, we are creating a zone in front of the camera. Anything that falls inside that zone will automatically be sharp and in focus. It's like drawing invisible boundaries in space. If your subject is inside the boundaries, it's in focus. Now, here's why it's so useful. Imagine that you are doing street photography. People are walking, things are happening quickly, and you don't have time to fiddle with focus every single shot. With zone focusing, you can just set your lens so that, say, everything between 8 to 15 feet is sharp. Then all you need to do is wait for something interesting to happen inside that zone. Raise your camera, click, and you have got a perfectly focused shot without even touching the focus ring. Think of it like creating a net of sharpness in front of your camera. Anything that falls within that net will be in focus, no matter what. Now, a lot of lenses come with these numbers engraved on them, and this is especially true for manual lenses. Now, on first look, these numbers might not make much sense, at least for me. So, I will explain what each of these numbers means and show you how these numbers are really important to do zone focusing. The numbers on the top of the lens are the aperture or f-stops. It controls the amount of light coming into the sensor. The numbers on the bottom of the lens are the focus zones. They will correspond to the aperture you set. And the ones on the focus ring are the distance markers in feet or meters. I will set the aperture on the top of the lens to f8. This will give us a greater depth of field and a greater focus zone. Now on the bottom of the lens, I will find the numbers that correspond to f8. This will give us the focus zone. Now I will move the distance markers to set the size of this focus zone. So anything between 1.5 feet to approximately 3 feet will be in focus. But the size of the focus zone also depends on the aperture. For example, I will change the aperture to f16 and set the same distance markers. Now anything between 1.5 feet to infinity is in focus. This means almost everything will be in focus, which is very good. Now every lens has a different focus zone. Here's my vintage 135mm f2.8 macro lens. Notice the design. The aperture ring is located at the bottom. The focusing zone is right in the middle and the distance markers are placed on the top. Just like before, I will now set the aperture to f8. Then I will find the numbers on the focus zone that correspond to f8. Now anything between approximately 5.8 feet and 6 feet is in focus, which is nothing really. Even if I close the aperture to f16, the focus zone is between 10 feet to almost 12.5 feet, which is still not big enough. I took some photos in the zoo last week and I'm pleased with the results. Now let's talk about the best gear and situations to use zone focusing. First of all, zone focus can only be used with manual lenses. You can also do it with autofocus lenses, but only with some hacks. This video is only for manual lenses. Second thing is, because you are using zone focus, chances are you want very sharp photos, right? Where everything is in focus. This means that you are going to work with higher f-stops or lower apertures, right? That's why people use higher f-stops for landscape photography, because everything should be in focus. Now, having said that, as you saw earlier, you can only get longer or deeper focus zones with wide angle lenses if you're using higher f-stops or lower apertures. So if you want to use zone focus to the maximum, you will need a wide angle lens. You can also do it with tighter focal lengths like 50 mm and so on, but then you will need a lot of light to do that, because you will again be shooting at higher f-stops. Now, and lastly, set your ISO to auto ISO. This means now your camera has become a point and shoot camera. All you need to do is point at the subject and click the shutter. That's it. Now, although zone focusing is mainly used to capture fast moving subjects, but you can also use it for landscape photography. Hear me out. So if you have a manual lens, all you need to do is set your aperture to the highest f-stop or lowest value, and then your focus zone basically stretches to infinity, right? And this is what you want. So this is how you can get maximum out of zone focusing on your lens or camera. Right, so this is all about zone focusing. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think about this? Would you try zone focusing with a manual lens, or would you still go for an autofocus lens? I'm curious to know what do you think. Again, if you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to drop a like and subscribe to the channel if you're new here. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.